Hello. So I have a light, one of these ring lights. Hang on a second. I'm going to kind of tone it down a little bit. How's that? Let's see how it is. um, so it's just now 3:29. Oops, what happened? Hang on a second. And hello, how are you? I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and I'm a little nervous. I just got a new ring light. I don't know if you've been here before, you'll either notice it's a little bit different or not. And if you have any comments about it, let me know, just because it would be nice to get this right. I've been living mostly with I have an aquarium right next to me, a little 5-gallon. I use the light on there. I have it up so there's some light, but now I actually invested in a ring light. So perhaps that's a little bit better lighting. So somebody was here and then they just left. It's kind of fun to watch those little numbers. I don't know if you've ever been on a YouTube live, but there's these things, and then there's people here and then people go, and it's kind of interesting. So today I am talking about, or answering questions, the most frequently asked questions about transformation. So I have been I've been in the midst of transformative work for a very long time, personally and professionally. I've had transformative experiences. They weren't like life changing, but they certainly shifted some of my perspectives. I was sailing across the Atlantic Ocean when I was 42, I think. So that was over 25 years ago, just put it that way. And I was in the boat, and I had this experience, this numinous experience of, I was in the boat and I was hanging on, and the boat was having this amazing experience in the ocean, and the ocean was comfortable in the earth, and the earth was comfortable in the galaxy, and the galaxy was comfortable in the universe. And so I had this experience of being in the universe in this amazing boat, in this amazing ocean, and the earth and the galaxy. And it was transformative, because where I had been so afraid of, in this moment, being on the Atlantic Ocean and drowning, I realized how safe I really was. And having a transformative or spiritually transformative experience like that, it's like, wow, there's a bigger reality. So that was the beginning, in a sense. I'd had other spiritually transformative experiences, as they're called or can be called. But that was sort of the big one. And then when I taught sailing on the San Francisco Bay, I was introduced to a number of elements of life that were transformative for me, but also for my students. The relationship with the boat, the relationship with the water, the way that I saw things, the way that I worked with things, things unfolded. And it was very interesting. So I ended up doing my dissertation on sailing as a transformational experience. And then move forward a bit, I developed a process called transformational coaching. A lot of people have transformational coaching out there. This was my orientation to transformation and transformational coaching. And since then, I've written books on transformation, and doing these podcasts on transformation. In the process, I sometimes call it spiritual immersion process, because there's an incremental way of going through, hi Marge, through life, where we are learning and showing up incrementally. And through those incremental processes, we grow and change and find ourselves somehow in a different place at some point. So all of that to say that about 3 weeks ago, I launched what is called a boot camp for self-transformation. It's Inward Bound Boot Camp for Self-Transformation. You can see the link below in the description, and you can sign up and get an email telling you when and where you'd find these boot camps on self-transformation. So transformation is really important. I mean, we're talking about it all the time, and people want transformation, but do they and do you really know what that is and what it means to transform? We all want it, but we're all scared of it. And we want it, but we don't want change. We just want the magic wand. Whoops, sorry. The magic wand to appear and hoot, 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 hoot. In our life, all of a sudden, we have health and wealth and prosperity. We have good friends. We have a great love life. We have the perfect everything. And that doesn't happen with the magic wand, but it does happen with awareness. So I wanted to introduce to you some of the questions that I've been asked over 20 some years. But what is transformation and how does it work? So the first question is that I have here, and if you have other questions that you'd like to ask, put them in the chat and or leave comments below, and I would be happy to answer those. But do check out the boot camp on self-transformation. And I'll talk about that again a little bit later. So what is transformation really? The process of transformation is a moment. Well, it gets complicated, right? We think of change as something that we're doing differently. Transformation takes place at the foundations of our being. It's not like we change our hair, or we change the way that we cook, or we change houses. This is a fundamental way that we change our being. So for instance, being on that boat and having this transformative experience, I was shifted at the foundations of my being, and I was more safe, and I shifted my relationship with the boat. I felt more confident, more connected, more engaged with the process, the boat itself and the ocean. And in that sense of safety, there was a different relationship with myself in that. So bigger changes at the foundations of our being. Our being is shifted. And this is a place where many of us don't even know we exist. I'll say, how are you being in a situation? If I'm coaching somebody, how are you being? And they'll go, I don't know what you mean by that question. How are you being? And it's like, we're always being, we're always in a state of being, happy, joyful, pissed off, depressed, oppressed, grumpy. We're in a state of being, and that state of being influences how we do what we do. And so when we become conscious of the states of being that we're in, we can actually then begin to choose differently. So quite often, if you've been watching me at all, you've heard me say that there's a statistic that 80% of our thoughts are negative in nature. So in a sense, our state of being is generally stressed or upset or disappointed or betrayed or dread or anxious, some state of being that is probably negative in nature. It's really hard to be happy and feel great about our lives, and 80% of our time we're thinking negative thoughts. How does that work? So the more that we're conscious of our thoughts, and when we're thinking what we think, we can be more choice about that. Yay, Aisha. Thanks for being here. It's nice to see you. So the more conscious, basically, transformation requires that we become more conscious of our thought patterns, and we're the way that we think and the way that we interpret, how we come to interpret what we interpret, the way that we see life. And generally speaking, the way that we see life is negative in nature. And then the way that we see life is generally fear-based. Most of us are very afraid to take the next step towards our own self-expression. And for me, I think transformation is really about taking the steps to say, this is who I am in my fullest expression, my essential nature, as I say. And when people come to me for coaching, and I say, so what is it you want? And they share with me what they want, whether it's a new car or a different relationship with their partner or better health, what they're wanting is the fullest expression of their essential nature. And I know that's what you want, because that's what everyone wants, is they want to be able to be free and express themselves fully. And that means being healthy and prosperous and generous and delightful and playful and connected. I'm thinking that's what you want, because that's when we feel like we're being ourselves. I love being myself when I'm in those states. And I've come to love myself more when I'm in those scrumpy other states too. But that the transformative process is moving us in the direction of our fullest expression. And what I like to say is into the fulfillment of our human spirit. We all know what that means to have or experience the fulfillment of the human spirit. We know that. We know it in sunrises and sunsets. You can see this tree behind me. As it's changing colors, it brings this experience within me that's like there's a fulfillment of my human spirit. I have another Chinese maple, tiny little thing, and it's just brilliant, and it just does something to my being. It's so beautiful. And so in that state, there's an expression of me in the moment of my fulfillment, fullest self. That's what I want for you. I suspect that's what you want for yourself. That's why we all want transformation. We just don't want to change. So I'll just leave that there. If you have other questions about that, then let me know. But that's a good place to start. Another question asked a lot is transformation related to spirituality. So transformation is really incremental. For me, it's incremental. And at some point, there's a tipping point and something shifts. And that's what we call the transformative process. And then we're somehow in a different paradigm. We're in a paradigm that's more what I call essence-based, not fear-based. We see the essence of an experience, or we're in the truth of an experience, or we're beyond judgment in terms of fear and fear-based and angst-based kind of living, and we're in a more neutral or in a love-based, a light-based orientation. And it takes time to train ourselves to go from what is fear-based and habits of living a certain way, and forgetting is a good habit that we get into, that it's hard to train ourselves to stop being forgetful, or to really take on a practice where we're developing and cultivating a reality and a day by day practice of being happy. I've had to do that myself. That's part of why I know this process so well, is because of what I've gone through personally to train myself to go, that's a negative place. And is that where you really want to go? Is that where you want to spend your time, in that negative place? I had a friend of mine, and she called me because she wasn't feeling well, and she was talking, and we'd finished that part of the conversation. And then she said, so, have you gotten your vaccination? And I said, yes, I had. And she said, well, I haven't. And she started in the story, in this loop, in this whole conversation. And basically, I just ended up saying, look, I don't have the energy to talk about all that. It's too much, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't, none of all of that you're right about, because she was making interpretations about things and perspectives about things. It's like, you're right about all that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, in my mind, whatever, I don't have the energy for it, basically. And so I was able to stop that, because it wasn't going to be a moment of fulfillment to my human spirit. And we come more to choice about that. And that's part of this transformational process for you, is that you go, wait, no, that isn't in alignment with my choice to be in peace and have a happy day. And because she wants to talk about that with me, I don't want to talk about it, because it's an energy drain for me. It has no, whatever the conversation, if it's not fulfilling and uplifting, what's the point of the conversation? And so that's part of that transformative process, where you go, that doesn't feel right to me, or that doesn't feel good to me. I think I'm going to, in law of attraction, they say, I'm going to pivot and focus on something positive, focus on the next best thing that I can bring into my life in terms of a positive orientation. So is spirituality related to transformation? So transformation is basically changing. Sorry, I got off topic. Changing incremental thoughts. We see a thought and we go, oh, that's a thought. It's a thought. I can pick up my magic wand. It's just a piece of plastic with some sparkles in it. It's not, that's what it is. But because of my interpretation, it's now a magic wand. And when I show that to people, they go, whoopee, okay, use it on me. And they get all excited. That's an interpretation. It's just a piece of plastic with some sparkles in it. So if we look at things from our orientation, it's just we can call it metaphysical, but the spiritual is when we come to realize ourselves as divine, as sacred, as part of the universal source of all that is, from the divineness of it. Now, some people don't think there is a divineness to the universes, and that's fine. But that's the difference between, for me, metaphysical and spiritual is that there's a sacredness to everything and to everyone. So I'm sacred, you're sacred. This is sacred. My computer is sacred. Everything is sacred. And so transformation can be related to spirituality, and there is this sense of a leap of faith, what we call, in a sense that we hope that something will happen on the other side, but that doesn't necessarily mean spiritual. And because I do a lot of spiritual coaching, people go, well, do you talk about spirituality all the time? And it's like, no, I don't have to. It's really a matter of the level of conversation that my clients are interested in having. But transformation isn't necessarily related to spirituality. My transformative numinous experience was a metaphysical experience, and I can interpret it as divine, but not necessarily necessary. Marge says, you talked earlier about essential self. How do you know the qualities? How do I know the qualities of my essential self? So the qualities, that's a beautiful question. Thank you. The qualities of your essential self is who you are, how you are being, no matter where you go, no matter who you're with, no matter what. So a really fun, like depending on, on how you define fun, is to go and ask your children, or ask your the clerk at the grocery store, or ask the librarian, or ask the women in your swimming class, wherever you are, to say, hey, here's a question for you. What shows up when I show up? What qualities enter the room when I do? When I enter the room, what qualities enter the room with me? And they will share with you who you are. And the light, the beauty, the childlikeness, the innocenceness, the creative, the play, all of those elements that come with you, that are always with you, that you can't hide. You can put a bushel basket on your head and walk around and ask people, and they will know who you are. You can go to ask strangers. I did this when I was training people to be life coaches in Palo Alto, and I had 30 people in the room, and I had done this exercise, and this one young Israeli fellow, very functional, very pragmatic. He said, yeah, we've all known each other like 3 hours, and they all had explored with each other their essence. I asked them to do the questions, and they all came up with that practice. He said, yeah, but that's really, we all know each other, so we just came up with that. And I said, well, I'm going to ask you to do something. I said, I want you to go around the corner, and I want you to go into the library, and I want you to stop and ask 3 people that same question. What shows up when I do? What qualities enter the room when I do? And so he went and did it. And he came back, and he kind of sat with his tail between his legs, like, yeah, kind of worked, because people saw his essence self. So that's a really wonderful way of exploring that with the who are you when you just are in the library or in the grocery store. Your essence is always with you. Now, you might ask your husband or your children, and you say, what shows up when I do? And they say grumpiness, or bitchiness, or you're always disappointed, or you're always sick and tired. It's like they're seeing a part of you, and it's like you've fooled them, that's who you are. But your essence self is the part it's part of your spirit self, so you can't destroy that. It's always an eternal. So does that work for you? Let me know if that works for you. uh but it's it's really challenging. I grew up in a family of 9, and there was a lot of dysfunction and a lot of craziness and chaos with so many people, and I was number 6. And so I came to know myself as insignificant, invisible, and incompetent as a human being. And so that made me unworthy, totally unworthy, right, of love, and totally unworthy of respect. So I lived the majority of my life in that state of being, insignificant, invisible, incompetent. Even though I was a therapist, and even though I had gotten married and all those things, the inner core of me believed that I was that. And when I started coach training, yes, your essence is always good. When I started to coach training and I learned this exercise and went through it, was like, wow, that's who I always am. It's always good. It's always delightful. It's always natural. When you're in this, in a sense, that's the great thing about a transformative process, is it releases you from all the negativity and the burdens that you carry of the past. So the database, the history, the religious stuff that we put on ourselves, the educational stuff, the interpretations, the contexts that we create, all of that database, if we eliminate that and put it over there and be here now in this moment, you will be in your essential nature. And you'll be more playful, most likely, and more spontaneous. I sing to my dog all the time, because I do. I have a lot more expressiveness. And I've mentioned in these videos before, one of the reasons I do these lives is to train myself to be myself here and be in my essential nature. And it's been delightful to get some comments from people who know me to go, hey, you're you. That's really great to see. You are you, and not something fake or false or pretending. So that's the deal, is we want to be. We came here to learn who we are and to learn who we're not. And as we learn who we are not, we can begin to let that go. And that's part of what the boot camp does, is it helps people over, it's a 20 videos over 4 weeks. It helps incrementally kind of distinguish, who are you and what are your thoughts? What are the things that you want, your desires? What's going to fulfill your human spirit? What's infinitely pleasing to you? And I'll tell you, very few people can answer that question. I couldn't answer that question for a long time. What's infinitely pleasing for me? Or what's my highest intention? What is it that's my purest intention? It's like, gosh, I don't know. And even this is like a few years ago, right? So this isn't like 20 or 40 years ago I became enlightened. It's like, no, I'm constantly working on these things. So the more that we know, it's like, this is what brings me joy. This is what's uplifting. Conversations about how people are talking about vaccinations or not, that is not an uplifting conversation for me. Might be for you, which is cool, but it's not for me. So I want to choose what I want to choose that is uplifting, because and I am now in my 70th year and saying to myself, okay, I'm old enough now that I can actually say, hey, I don't want to have this conversation. And I'm saying, I know myself well enough to know this is not a conversation I want to have. And I know myself enough to empower myself to say, I don't want to have this conversation. So it's taken me a long time to do that, but there's been incremental, and this is a caterpillar. That's what this is. So I'm saying incremental stages, incremental moments where I've claimed claimed the truth of myself. And those are transformative moments. And they're amazing. And it's like, wow. And quite often, and I wrote a book about this called I've Arrived. Well, sort of. That's the name of the book, is I've Arrived. Well, sort of. And it's like, there are these moments, and they're also called transcendent moments, where it's like, oh, everything is sunshiny. And it's like, I totally get it. I totally get how the world works. I totally get myself, and I think I'm really great. And then, whoo, we're back into a time warp of the history and the database and the old stuff and what my children tell me I am and all the rest of it. So it's really distinguishing that essential nature and knowing that part and wanting to build more on that. And one of the questions here is, what makes it so hard? Like, why is transformation so hard? And it's only because we're grasping, because we've been told, and Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, says we've been domesticated to believe that this is the way the world works. This is the way it is. And you've got to be afraid. You've got to be very afraid, and you've got to listen, and you've got to make those choices that everybody else is making, because that's the way you do it. If you hire a lot of people hire a business coach, and this is how you do business, and get your certificates and do this and do that. And it's like, this is how you're supposed to do it. If you don't do it the right way, you're in trouble. It's not, or you're going to fail. And so everybody is afraid of failing. Everybody's afraid of doing it wrong. Everyone's afraid of, if I lose this, terrible, horrible things are going to happen to me. And that's all fear-based. And it's like, why is transformation so hard? And why is it so hard to be in our essence self? Because somewhere, I suspect, Marge, somebody told you that you were fat and ugly and stupid, or dumb, or, you'll never get a date, or you'll never go to college, or stuff that people say about you. And you go, yep, where's that bushel basket? Because it's too scary to be me. You might have said something that was delightful and wonderful and exciting, and somebody, it might have been your dad, or might have been a teacher, who said, that's ridiculous. And I've heard clients say this to me, is they've said something from their heart, and somebody said, that's ridiculous. And they just shut down for the rest of their life, because that's what we do. That's what we do. And the thing that's happening right now, especially with the COVID situation over the last couple of years, is it's created so much uncertainty, and it's broken down so many of the ways that we've been in barriers. Like, we've been busy. Before COVID, we were busy doing our life, and COVID happened, and a lot of people lost their jobs or their homes. They've lost their context of reality. And it's like, who am I in here? What's my purpose? And this is where it gets scary, because it's like our consensus view of reality doesn't give us a platform or the foundation or books that say, here's what you do. It's like, life sucks for you right now, and you'll get through it, or just pray, those kinds of things. It doesn't give us the foundations for, here's how you go through something like that. Or we get medication, or we think there's something wrong, and we might get therapy for support, which is important. But if we take it as a dysfunction, then we miss the opportunity for the transformative nature of the process. I don't know if that makes sense. Marge says, big brothers are good at saying things to shut us down. It's like, absolutely. Absolutely. It's our mothers, our fathers, and it can be just one moment in time, and we're gone. We've vanished. And now all we are is personalities. In a sense, personalities are what we take on as strategies to conform and to be what we think other people need us to be, so that we can survive. Because obviously, as my essential self, I'm going to go down the tubes. I was going to use the F word, but basically, if I'm just my essential self, I'm going down the tubes. What it wasn't, I was so in a constrained sense of self, up till even even 5 years ago. It's like you let go of the constraints more and more and more and more and more. But if you don't, you're in this constrained sense of self, and that constrained sense of self wears on you physically, and so you get disease, and it wears on you emotionally, and so you can get depressed because you're oppressed by the circumstances, and you're become oppressed by your own sense of, how do I make sense of this so that I can survive? And the process of transformation is really about getting out of that survival mode and really beginning to live in a thriving mode. And it takes the courage to notice and see, wow, I see how I keep believing in things that don't make sense to me. And I need to start to train myself to let go of those things that no longer serve me. Yoda says, train yourself to let go of what you're afraid to lose. And that's been a major mantra for me in my life, is to let this go. I'm afraid that if I don't have this, then my whole life is just going to go down the tubes. If I don't, it's a whole lack mentality. And so we're taught to hold on to what you got. There's a whole song about that, from the Four Seasons. Anyway, won't sing you a song. But we're looking at those dynamics and then going, that doesn't work. And the more that you're intentional about creating a life that's thriving, you begin to be more conscious of those thoughts that don't work, or those behaviors that don't work, or those emotions that you thought you were like, it's just emotions, but that you realize that you're creating those emotions. I used to wake up every morning in a state of dread. It was normal. And I didn't even realize it until one day I woke up and I go, that's still there. I've done all this work on myself and I'm still waking up in this state of dread. Wow. Okay. I got to pay attention to this. Like, what do I need to shift, and how can I see this different? And how do I know myself in a state other than dread? And it's like, oh, here's where I've been out of dread. I haven't been in dread 100% of my life. Here's where I have been out of dread. Okay, so I want to expand the capacity to be this. So that means I have to watch where I am in dread and go, okay, there it is. Now I can do something different. So a lot of the transformative process are in these incremental trainings of going, okay, I'm thinking this, it's not happy thoughts, doesn't help, doesn't support me. I think I'm going to give that up, just as an experiment in this moment. It's not for a lifetime. With any addiction process, the 12-step programs the slogan is one day at a time. And for me, sometimes it was one moment at a time. I'm going to give this up for one moment. Ooh, here it comes. It's like, nope, I'm giving it. Nope, 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 nope. And it's like exercising, going to the gym and exercising. It's like, just lift it for 1 second more. Okay, I can do that. Okay, done. Excellent. I did it. And so every moment that we can gain in our state that we're wanting to grow in this thriving, joyful, essential place, that's one more moment that we've spent here versus a lifetime or lifetimes of this pathetic loser, this victim, this I'm not worth it, I'm a ugly piece of poo, whatever it is that we have come to think about ourselves. We can start to go, that doesn't get me closer to wanting to be in my essence self. I might not know what that is, but I know I'm happier when I'm. So a lot of times I'll say to people, when do you know yourself happy or happier? And they'll say, well, when I'm knitting, for instance, or when I'm painting, or when I'm out with my dog, or when I'm in a sailboat, or, I had an experience when I was in Europe and I was sitting under a tree and I had that experience. So everybody knows what that experience is. We just have to kind of reach for it and look for it And we go, what's that? What was that quality of experience that you were having in that moment? What is it that you're experiencing when you're knitting? What is it experiencing when you're with your puppy dog? What is it that makes that feeling? What is that feeling? That quality of being, state of being. So that's the hard part, is thinking is like, we want it all now. I wanted it now. I went into a deep dive with this work, and it was like, I want out. I just want to get back to normal. But in normal, I was suffering, a lot of suffering. I didn't want normal. I just wanted to get the magic wand out and get it to work. But it took years, because I had to, in a sense, everything is a discovery, everything is an exploration, and we don't want to take the time to do that. And so two things happen. A bunch of things happen, is we distract ourselves. So many people are on their phones constantly. That's a distraction from themselves. Sometimes they're using it, but mostly it's a distraction from ourselves. And when we're in that state of distraction, we're avoiding the restless irritableness, the discontent of our lives, because we don't want to feel it. It's uncomfortable. So we distract ourselves with our electronics. We distract ourselves with food, drugs, alcohol. We distract ourselves with work, things that make us feel important. But those distractions are only distractions, and at some time, something's going to happen. And quite often, disease becomes what I call a vision quest experience, in a sense that in disease, and cancer is a big deal. In cancer, it's like people start to wake up. They go, well, what's the source of my cancer? Like, why did I get cancer? Oh, stress, my orientation to too much work. I wasn't taking any time off. I was ignoring myself. I was ignoring my emotional needs and my physical needs. I was distracting myself. Ah, that's interesting. And so they begin to do that exploration, the self-exploration that's required for a better life, a life of thriving versus surviving. Aisha, are you still there? Any questions that you have? Any thoughts or feedback that you have while you're here? I'd love to hear. One of the things that is, for me, it was true, is that the transformative process is a process of initiation, an initiation of an honest, authentic life, growing yourself into the fullest level of mastery. I love to think of living your life as, I don't know why I'm looking at my circle. Sorry, my ring. I'm not looking at the camera, just right above. But it's initiation into that fulfillment, and initiation into the struggles, and the willingness to fight, in a sense, into to be courageous in service to that level of you that you want to experience. And that's a big deal. So, in a vision quest experience, where indigenous people, or people who go out on a vision quest, will in a sense confront their fears, or confront elements of life that are present to them. And it's not like fighting. We don't have to fight. We just have to meet those things that are scary to us and be present to them in a way that grows our capacity to meet those things. We do it all the time in games, electronic and internet games and things like that. We're always up leveling, and we're always challenging ourselves. And, people will do that. I think about the Mario Brothers. That's about my level and speed of gaming. But how many I can't get past level 1, and Mario dies again and again and again. But at some point I learned something, and boom, he's at the next level. It's like, wow. Okay. Now I've learned something that got Mario to the next level, and then the next level, and I can up level. But I stay people who are playing the games, they're attuning to what's required of them to learn in order to get to the next level. And nobody can do that for you. And nobody can do that even in a game. You have to learn that for yourself. And it's the same process. We're constantly up-leveling ourselves to the next level of challenge that brings about fulfillment. And it does. And then there's a next level of challenge. So this transformative process becomes an everyday evolution of you, and not just, woohoo, we transformed, we got the big car, we've got the money, we got the house, we got the kids, everything is perfect. Now it's stable. Nothing will change. And it's like, yeah, no, you've arrived, but not really, because now there's the next challenge. Can I fail at transformation? Can I fail at transforming? And the answer to that is no, you can't fail at transforming, because it's an ever growing capacity to be curious about yourself and to explore and to get to know yourself. So can you fail at getting to know yourself? Only if you ignore and avoid and are trying. So it's like people say, well, I'm not getting to know myself. And I go, well, what's in the way? And they say, well, I'm always on my, my boss is always telling me that they need me to do things. And, my texting is constant. And, it's like, okay, so you're not really creating a time and space for you to get to know yourself. Oh, yeah. Okay. I get that. Okay. So what do you want to do about that? What needs to shift, as I ask? What needs to shift? And it's like, well, I guess I need to turn my phone off. I need to make some time for myself. I need to for myself so that I can have that time and value myself more. Okay, great. What will you practice to do that? Well, I'll I can't. It's like there's this stammering, and it's like, well, okay, I can turn my phone off while I have dinner, so my dinner time isn't more peaceful. Excellent. I can close the door and not let the dog in, and leave my phone outside my room, and have it off. And I've heard people say, my phone is off and it still rings. It's like, yeah, your phone's not off. It's got to turn your phone off. And it's these things that distract us constantly. And there's people that think that when their phone rings, they have to answer it. And that's not self-empowerment, right? It's, oh, the phone is ringing. I'm at the mercy of the phone. I have a text. I have to answer the text. It's like, you're not at the mercy of the text. You're not at the mercy of the phone, unless you want to be. That's a choice. That's a choice. I know my daughter, it's very important to me that when my daughter contacts me, I want to be in touch with her. So she's a priority. However, if I'm having dinner with friends, I won't answer unless I know it's an important call. There are cases where this moment and what's happening in this moment is more important than anything else. So I'm very clear about that for myself, as opposed to saying, well, yeah, but a client might call and they want to pay me money and I better do this and how I better do that and I better listen. And it's all a matter of going, okay, so just stop. What's the highest priority here? Marge says, sorry to go backwards, but you mentioned that we develop a personality as a way to protect our essentials. You say more about beautiful. So in a sense, a personality is a survival mechanism. It's a way of saying, oh, people like beauty is a very important thing. And in terms of makeup or facelifts or fashion. And so it's like, if I'm going to be loved, I better be beautiful. Or if I'm going to be loved, or if I'm going to survive, I better have these skills. So my brother Michael was very funny, and that was a survival skill. And he was also athletic, and that was a survival. I mean, it's like it's like some people are just naturally that way, but some people take it on to give them approval. And so people who are constantly looking for approval, there's a personality that plays a role in that. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. On my end, my screen is kind of stopping and stuttering, so I hope that's not. But we developed ways to be cute, or we develop ways to be sexy, or we develop ways to be powerful or aggressive. We develop because we go, this works. And we go, oh, that works. Okay, I'm going to do that. And it becomes us. And, sometimes in some ways, we have our, but there are also elements of us that are come from us, that come with us from lifetime to lifetime, that are other aspects of person survival mechanisms that we've brought with us, like um, ways that fear-based ways of being that were just part of us. Is that? And I'm trying to kind of give it in a small, compact way, as opposed to keep going on this conversation. But does that make sense, Marge? That in a sense we see, here's what's important in the family. So in my family, there was so much chaos. Here's what would be helpful. I'm going to be quiet. And my sister Patrice, who was number 5, she really came invisible for a very long time and got depressed. But in her room, it's like she became invisible because there was so much tension and stress that what part of what the family needed was some of us to disappear. So being quiet and not those were important parts of my personality that I developed. So after a while, I couldn't even hear I couldn't, people are always talking above me. I couldn't get a word in and I would a lot. So that was part of the personality. So that's what I'm talking about, is looking around and saying, here's what's required. Here's what I'll do. And then we start doing. And it's like, if I do this, then I'll be loved and people will see me and they'll value me. And then I can be myself. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not what happens. Oh my God, I could totally be my. I hope it's okay. Anyway, I love being with people who I can be myself with. And you know what that's like, being with people who know you, or you can be yourself with, that. And it's like, that's what you want, is more of that. And we can go, yeah, but my mother doesn't like me being that. My husband doesn't like me being that way. And it's like, yeah, well, now you got some choices to make, because this is your life and you get to decide and choose for yourself who you're going to spend time with and how do you want to spend that time. Much like I said to this friend of mine, I don't have the energy for that conversation. So I'm going to go. Please, thank you, because I'm valuable, and if she values me, she's going to totally understand what she did. She's like, I totally get it. I'll talk to you later. Like, okay. So, no, you can't fail at transformation. And what's important to know is that you don't have to, in the boot camp, it's like, okay, here's 20 weeks or 20 videos in 4 weeks, and like, go for it. But I'm very clear in that you don't have to do it all at once. And in fact, a boot camp, if you were in the Army and you went to the boot camp, you're in basic training. You're learning the basics of the skills that are required. And sometimes that's all you get. But those are the big skills. And so you're at the beginning level, hopefully, if you're interested and you look at the boot camp, you're looking at the basics of the foundations of what's required through this in a transformative experience. And a good transformational coach is to wave their wand and say, do this and you're going to be great. You're going to be transformed. A good transformational coach is a steward and can go a step with you along the way, one incremental moment at a time, and go, yeah, This is the space, the place, this is the spot. And I've had a number of people this week who are in breakdown and they're going, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. I'm looking, my life is just like everybody else's. Why am I upset? And when we can talk about it, and when I'm there present and helping as a witness and a thinking partner, say, look at what you're dealing with. Look at what your life is in this moment and the struggle and the challenge that you're with. It makes perfect sense. And she said, I go through these waves of depression. And I said, so if you were to describe what the wave of depression actually feels like, what's that feeling? And she said, mostly sadness. So it's not depression. Depression is more of a numbness, consistent numbness. Most time when people talk about depression, it's usually a combination, a cocktail of emotions, primarily unresolved grief, and places where self-deprecation has been there for so long and nobody's ever articulated it. That's a way of doing a personality. Tell me what you need, tell me what you need, tell me what you need. And we just self-deprecate. And then we get to a point where we feel oppressed and depressed and we go, what about? It's like, well, I'm angry because I never got to tell people what I really feel in my life. I've never been able to even say what I want in my life. It's not allowed. And so we're able to dismantle and to give room and space for, of course you're sad about that. Of course you're angry about that. Of course you've never been able to do that in your life so far. And here's a moment where it starts to come up. Here's where you can't hold it down anymore. You can't control it anymore. And people get upset. They don't want to break down. They don't want to go through this transformative process. And yes, every breakdown contributes to the transformative process. Absolutely. You're going to ask that question. Frofro, I think the name, or the Frofro is Let Go is the name of the song, I think. But the lyric is let go, and that there's beauty in the breakdown. And when anyone I know that has actually allowed themselves that breakdown experience, a release and a truth in it that's exquisite. And I've done it enough that I've been there many, many times, and champion people to have those experiences. The more you have the breakdown, the more you're clearing away all that stuff that's no longer you and not supporting you in thriving and being the essential you. How can I make it easy? How can I make this process easy? That's a great question. How can I make this transformational process, which means I have to do these deep dives and I have to break down and I have to be with the stuff and I have to make choices to myself. How do I make that easy? Hi, Fred. What's made it easy is for me personally is for somebody as a support or a thinking partner or that understands, so that I first of all don't feel alone. And that's part of the intention of these lives, YouTubes, is to say you're not alone, and this is such a natural, normal process in the evolution of you as a spiritual human being. As a spiritual being, you're here in this process. This is the part of the what for me transformation doesn't require that you attend to your spiritual self. But for me, owning that I'm a spiritual self in this human experience, then I can see this spiritual is attempting to have this experience of fulfillment, and all the ways that I'm going, no, it's too scary, I can't let you do that. That's the little self trying to stay safe. And so the more that I have witnesses, the more that I watch things like this, the more that I read books that are supportive. My books, I think, are supportive in this process. And the book Oneness that I talk about a lot is very supportive for me anyway. Course in Miracles. Paul Selig's work is very supportive because it addresses who we are going through this human process of evolution. And it's like our consensus reality goes, no, here's how it is. You're a kid, and then you're an adolescent, and then you're grown up, and then you have a job, and then you retire, and then you're dead. It's like that's what it is, as opposed to, ooh, this is really messy, and there's a lot going on here, and I have these spiritual senses, and I have what's going on here, but I can't talk about it because people tell me that's crazy and woo-woo, or it doesn't matter, or you don't matter, or who cares anyway. So it's like this is natural and normal. This is a natural, normal, fundamental process of living life. And the more that we can address that and go, yeah, that, then we can become more fulfilled in the process. Even though it's scary, it's going to be scary. It's not dangerous, but it is scary because we're moving into a paradigm which our consensus reality says doesn't exist, where miracles happen and where life is good. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It just means it's not scary. It's not scary over here. I'm not as scared as I used to be in life, which is amazing. I'll tell you. For no other reason, you want to explore life differently so that you don't have to be so afraid. That's what I would want for you. Like, life is good without fear, and life is good to make choices on something other than based on fear. And that's, again, what I would like for you. So what makes it easy is knowing that that this is normal, that this is part of the spiritual evolution of you in this human experience, that there are people out there that are, everybody, actually, I want to say there are people out there that are going through it. Every single human being is going through this transformative process. They just aren't conscious of it. But every one of us is going through it. Every one of us is evolving, and we can be conscious of it, which supports and empowers that evolution, or we can stay scared and kick and scream and go anyway. It's really your choice. And it's not like you have to go, oh yes, I'm doing it now. Anybody who wants to lose weight, anybody who wants to stop drinking, anybody who wants to stop smoking, it's like the resistance, the scare, the fear of giving up what we think we need. That's all part of this process of who are we, and what are we doing here, and what do I want? How do I really want to be in my life? How do I want to explore this human experience? What is it about? And some people choose from a pre-life place. I got to know who I am through a disease process. And the spiritual being has this experience that they've come here to have as a learning opportunity. That's not my path. I am intending on health and wealth being my my spiritual practice more and more, as opposed to life being about suffering and struggling and isolation and loneliness, and that I'm a pathetic loser. So we all get to choose what our path is, when we want to move forward and when we don't. There's no hurry, there's no rush. I just want people to know it's here, and it's what is happening to everyone. We just can be more conscious about it or not. We can make those choices for ourselves. Any questions that you guys have? I've just touched on some of the elements of transformation, some of the questions that I've been asked many, 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 many times. Last question, if you guys don't have any other questions to ask. Do I need help? Do I need support? And I would say it's not necessary. There's a lot of ways that you can get, and again, the ones that I've mentioned, Oneness or my own work, There's all kinds of podcasts, Brene Brown or Deepak Chopra or whoever it is that inspires you and uplifts you. They're bringing you to a place of knowing yourself in that state. And having a thinking partner that helps you distinguish some of those elements of you that you can't see yourself, how you're stopping yourself. That's a good thing to have. The boot camp, Inward Bound Boot Camp, again, the link is below, can be really helpful. And you get to do it yourself and reach out when you can. And at some point, we may have a group or something where a support group for each other where people can do that. But right now, it's really a matter of here's some skills and tools that might be helpful for you, and playing with it and exploring, and nothing too serious. If it gets hard, I get help. I've got coaches. I've got support. I've got people I go to when I need that kind of support. You can't do it all by yourself. And sometimes there's a lot that you can do by yourself. It's really up to you. So do you need help? You might, and you might resist for whatever reason. And I totally understand that because I resist myself. But when I need it, I know where to go. And I want you to know where to go too. In a sense of reaching out to people that you trust and that respect you and trust you and you can feel safe with. Well, we've come to the end. Any other questions or thoughts? I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. And if there's nothing else, then I will see you next week. Yeah, I want to tell you, if you want, in November, it's 2021, I'm going to do the whole month on narcissism. So it's called, the month is called Narcissism. It's all about me. So stay tuned for that. We've got another week of transformation questions. And then in November, we'll talk about narcissism. How fun is that? Thanks, Aisha. I'm glad you're here. Thanks, Fred and Marge. You guys are great. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.